Intake gets clients in the door. Marketing fills the pipeline. But delivery? Delivery is where your firm proves whether it actually deserves to grow. Delivery is where clients decide if they trust you. Attorneys feel supported or buried. Teams either move in sync or constantly scramble. And here's the hard truth. Most law firms do not have a delivery system. They have good people, strong intentions, experienced attorneys, but the actual delivery of work relies on individual judgment, memory, heroics, and constant manual intervention, which means delivery works until it doesn't. Today, we're talking about how to build a delivery system that works every time, not because people are perfect, but because the system is. Welcome back to Tech Talks with Grace, the show where we turn operational chaos into clarity, one system at a time. We're opening Pillar 7, Delivery Systems and Client Experience. Up until now, we focused on intake, CRM architecture, stages, and rules. But none of that matters if delivery is inconsistent. Today's episode is called Building a Delivery System That Works Every Time. This episode is intentionally tactical. We're going to talk about how delivery actually happens inside real law firms, where variability creeps in, how tools like Smart Advocate, Litify, CasePeer, and FileVine are typically misused, and how to design delivery so it doesn't depend on individual memory. By the end of this episode, you should be able to look at your firm and say, I know exactly where delivery is strong and where it's fragile. Let's get into it. Let's discuss why delivery is the most fragile part of a law firm. Delivery is fragile because it sits at the intersection of humans, time, external dependencies, and emotional clients. Unlike intake, delivery spans weeks, months, sometimes years. It involves multiple roles. It depends on courts, carriers, agencies, and opposing counsel. It has high emotional stakes for the clients. So when delivery is not systematized, three things always happen. These are failure patterns. Number one, delivery depends on who has the case. Two clients with the same case type get completely different experiences. Why? Because one case manager is meticulous, one attorney documents well, another relies on memory. That's not malpractice. That's lack of system design. Failure pattern two, work happens, but no one can see it. So tasks get done, emails get sent, and calls get made. But the CRM or case management system does not reflect this reality. So leadership is unable to tell what's actually moving, what's stalled, and what's at risk. They end up managing by escalation. Failure pattern number three, clients feel those gaps. Clients don't experience internal process issues. They experience silence, conflicting messages, missed expectations, and unclear next steps. Delivery failure shows up as trust erosion, not operational errors. It's very important to understand that. When you're not communicating, even if it's a simple, hey, we know you're there, here's a very brief status update, there is no status update, you have to understand that the clients are not seeing a delivery issue. What they see is no communication. This erodes trust. This is not an operational error. This is not a person or a people error. This is a business systems and process issue. That brings us to reality. There are real delivery environments inside your law firm, and it's not as simple as just taking a system and hoping it works. Most firms use some combination of Smart Advocate, Litify, CasePeer, or FileVine for case management. They use email and phone for communication, sometimes MailChimp or a marketing software. Documents could be scattered across different systems, different case management software, different SharePoint, OneDrive, different repositories, and task lists that may or may not be enforced. What I consistently see is this. The case management system exists, but delivery decisions happen outside of the system. I'll give you some examples. I'll remember to follow up. I sent the email. We're good. The paralegal knows exactly what to do next. That's just how this attorney works. A delivery system fails the moment it relies on personal recall instead of designed sequence. There are 3 solid building blocks that provide a reliable delivery system. And it works every time if it has 3 non-negotiable components. Not software features, structural components. The first one is non-negotiable steps. What must happen every single time, no matter what. Every case type, personal injury, family, immigration, criminal law, has steps that must happen. Not usually, not if we remember, every single time. I'll give you some examples. Many of you are very aware of these examples, but I'll provide it anyway. An engagement letter must be sent. Initial document requests must be issued. Client onboarding must be completed before you can move to the next step. And attorney reviews must be logged for audit purposes or otherwise. And while this may not seem imminently important, it does become important and is the trust factor that we were talking about previously. Status updates must be sent to the client, particularly if you're missing something. The problem is that most firms never explicitly define these as non-negotiable, so they become optional in practice. In systems like Smart Advocate or CasePeer, these steps should exist as required milestones or tasks, not as tribal knowledge. If a step is non-negotiable, the system should refuse to let the case progress without it. The second non-negotiable is the workflow structure. In other words, order, ownership, and timing. Delivery must answer 3 questions at every single stage. What happens next? Who owns it? And by when? Most delivery systems fail because the tasks exist without deadlines, ownership is unclear, and the order is implied, not enforced. In practice, it ends up looking like the tasks assigned to a team, deadlines are left blank, attorneys are assuming that staff handled something specific when it was not tracked or handled, and the staff is assuming the attorney reviewed something when they may not have. A workflow is not a checklist. It is a sequence with consequences. The third non-negotiable is reduced variability. In other words, a same case type does not mean infinite paths. Variability is the enemy of scale. Every time a firm allows custom steps just because, ad hoc sequencing just because, or personal preferences because that's just the way they work, the delivery system weakens. This does not mean rigidity. It doesn't mean you're locked into a particular style, process, or anything like that. It means a standardized path with defined exception handling. You know exactly when it hits this point. If there's going to be an exception, you know exactly how to handle that exception based on the case type. So does the system. I'll give you an example. A standard personal injury delivery workflow with a documented exception path for unusual cases. The actual real, to give you a concrete example, one of the ones I've seen used in firms so far have been exceptions like traumatic brain injury, a trucking accident versus a standard car accident. If you have a standard car accident where the qualifiers are good, everybody understands that the person is not at fault, their statute of limitations have not passed, everything looks fine, but there is a TBI. All of a sudden, you note that there's traumatic brain injury, dismemberment, or something, basically a large injury that should be addressed immediately. These are the types of things that will be part of your documented exception path for unusual cases that require either immediate review, immediate contact by an attorney, or something of that nature where the exception is handled as part of your standard workflow. Without this, your CRM becomes a suggestion and not a system. Let me give you a concrete example. A multi-practice firm uses Litify. Very strong attorneys, experienced staff, they have solid intake, but delivery It was inconsistent. What did we find exactly when we delved into their workflows and their stages? Each attorney had their own delivery rhythm. Case managers created personal tasks within their own cases. CRM stages moved late, if at all, and follow-up depended on reminders and sticky notes, emails, Teams messages, things of that nature. Clients were complaining about not knowing what the status of their case was. They didn't know what was happening. They were feeling ignored, and they were only getting updates when they actually asked for an update. What did we change? They didn't add software. They instead defined the non-negotiable delivery steps by case type. We built a workflow with sequences that enforce the order. In other words, order of operations, just like in math, just like in your delivery system, just like in your case workflow. We reduced the customization of tasks, so standardized naming conventions for the tasks that must happen at each stage, and made status communication part of the system and not an option. What happened from there? Delivery didn't just improve, stress dropped because the system carried the weight, not people having to remember to send this email based on this or based on that, based on some checklist or some arbitrary decision at that moment. It was based on the system. The system carried the weight, not the people. The people were left to do their jobs. Let's get to my favorite part, and that is anchoring this in action. We're going to go into our takeaways. The first takeaway is I would like you to just sit and write this again. It doesn't matter. No judgment. It has nothing to do with your people. It is process driven. And again, no judgment. Write this on a piece of paper if you have to, on a workboard, on a napkin if you need to. You're going to list your delivery steps. For one case type, pick one. And if you want, pick one that makes you the most revenue. That would probably be your best bet. For that one case type, you're going to write every single step from retention to resolution in the exact real order that it happens. And again, as it actually happens. We're not doing any optimization yet. We're just looking at the truth of exactly what happens in your firm. The second takeaway, you're going to identify one variable step. In other words, one step that changes based on who's handling it. Does delivery, or where does delivery depend on who's actually handling the case at that stage? Where do outcomes vary for the same case type? Again, where do outcomes vary for the same case type? That is going to be your weakest point. In other words, what happens at that stage, and if who's handling it, and do things change because that stage or of who's handling it based on the case type? That is your weakest point. This is your variable step that you're identifying. The third takeaway, we're going to now standardize one part of the delivery system. We're not doing the entire system. We're not going to optimize everything. You're picking the one case type, the one step, and all of the delivery steps that happen in there, and you're going to standardize one step, one handoff, and one moment that you're communicating. You're going to make it non-negotiable. Then enforce it through the system, not memory. Many times you might ask yourself at this point, how do I do this? I'm running the business. I don't have time to sit and pick and write out all these workflows. I don't necessarily know the entire workflow from beginning to end and where it lands. That's not a problem. What you're writing down is what you know. If you don't know the full process and you know 99.9% of it or even 10% of it, you can tap into your staff to give you the rest of the pieces that you absolutely need. Or hand it off to ops. I can guarantee you your ops person knows exactly what's supposed to happen from beginning to end and what's not happening, because they hear it from intake, they hear it from the attorneys, they hear it from every staff member, what is broken, what's bottlenecking, and what is causing the stress for your attorneys and all of your clients as well. So what you're doing here is taking one case type, writing all the delivery steps, how it actually happens. You're going to identify one variable step, and you're going to standardize one part of that delivery. One step, one handoff, one moment of communication. You're making it non negotiable. Again, micro actions for the macro impact that you need in your business. Not to overwhelm anybody, not to blame anybody, and not to judge anybody, but to fix and view what's happened once you've made that incremental change. Here's the core truth of today's episode. Delivery does not fail because your team doesn't care. It fails because systems were never designed to carry the load. When delivery is systemized, clients feel supported, attorneys are able to focus or regain focus, teams stop firefighting, and growth becomes possible without any burnout. In the next episode, we'll go deeper. We're going to go deep into the mapping of your delivery workflows, visually and operationally, so you can see where work actually moves, stalls, or breaks. Those bottlenecks are important. I'm Grace, and this is Tech Talks with Grace.